Association. I want to say thank you to all of you for joining us today in this series of webinars that we're doing related to the impact of COVID-19 on independent insurance agencies and your clients. So today, what we're going to talk about is implementing an effective technology strategy that serves your agency during COVID-19 and beyond. So we're excited about having this session today. We've got Jason Walker joining us, and he's going to walk through all of the intricacies of setting your agency up for not just success during COVID-19 and the things you've done as a result of that to move to a remote workforce or to better serve your clients, but also the strategy in the future and how you optimize that. Jason does some consulting work with us at the OIA and has an extensive background, and he'll introduce himself in a minute. But again, he's on the team and doing a great job for us. And so for the purposes of this webinar, everyone is on mute, and you probably know that if you're looking at your screen that you can't speak. We're going to use the Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen to submit questions, and we will answer those towards the end of the session. You can also use the chat feature if you'd like, if you want to raise your hand or want to dive in on a particular issue. We are also going to use the polling function and feature that's down at the bottom of your panel. And that's going to be important because this session is approved for 1 hour of continuing education. So in order to get the continuing education, you have to participate in the poll. So keep that in mind, participate in the poll. You'll see it pop up. It's going to be about the 45-minute mark where we're going to do that. So we are, speaking of CE, we're working on getting all of our future webinars approved for CE so that you'll get credit for this. And speaking of those webinars, we have a bunch planned going forward. On Monday, we're doing one as a public policy town hall where we have a state senator and a state representative talk to us a little bit about reopening Ohio, what that's going to look like, what that's going to feel like, where the economic relief opportunities are at from the state perspective. We'll also talk a little bit about federal. And we're going to have an agent, Tal Moon, who's also a local official down in Southwest Ohio, who's going to talk to us about the local government perspective and the impact on the local economy from not just a public official perspective, but also an agent perspective. So we're excited about that. That's on Monday. We've got one planned on how to return to work safely next Friday, as we expect the governor's going to allow the state to reopen on May 1st. We've got one planned on ethics, ethics during a crisis in an agency. So it'll apply, that 1 hour will apply towards, assuming we can get approval, it'll apply towards the 3 hours that you need to complete your ethics CEs. Also leading an agency during a crisis. So we've got several webinars planned. In addition to that, I want to touch upon our resources out there. Again, as we've done in every one of these, check out our website, go to our website. It's where we house all these resources. We're emailing you, but that's the place where you can go. If you ever have a question, you ever have any thoughts, or you have any, want to know where resources are at, the website is the first place to check. And then again, you can find contact information for me and all the other members of the OIA team to get back in touch with you. Last thing before we jump into having Jason drive through this conversation and discussion is I want to talk to you a little bit about OIA resources. So Jason, if you can maybe advance a slide or two, you've got some of that built in there, right there. I just want to touch on these really quickly for you guys. We at the OIA know that technology is an integral part of you running your business. And we've known that for a long time, but we've tried to do more to help be an advisor to you on that. And so using the structure of the association, we have put together an agency technology roundtable. We've turned them into podcast sessions and also live webinars that you can view on our website, where we've got thought leaders in the agency space that are sharing with us what they're doing from every component of technology. We talk about specific technology solutions during that hour-long discussion. But we also, these agents are laying out for you everything that they're doing. And the cool thing is we've got large to small and everything in between. Every agent is well represented in this context. And again, these agencies are sharing everything that they're doing. So it's a really cool thing, and I would encourage you to check that out. The final thing is, and I touched on Jason being a part of this team. Jason's our technology solutions advisor. He is providing technology strategy and roadmap and working directly with agencies on the tactical to the strategy in terms of your technology initiatives on behalf of OIA. With that, it's similar to the legal hotline where we have a broad spectrum of services. The first is you can get 30 minutes of free consultation as being a member of the OIA directly from Jason. So if you want to call Jason and say, hey, thinking about moving agency management systems, I'm thinking about bringing on this new technology solution. How do I go about doing that? What kind of questions should I be asking? What should I be looking at? He's available 30 minutes free. If you want to go deeper than that, that's when, it starts to turn into a private consultative session. But Jason's a guy that's doing that for us. So we're excited to have him here today, and we will move forward. And with that, Jason, take it over. Jason's going to talk to you. He's got a nice deck built out. He's going to talk to you for about the next, 40 to 45 minutes. And after that, we're going to do Q&A. Like I said early on, we're going to do polling, then we're going to do Q&A, and we'll finish at 1 o'clock. So thanks again for joining us. Jason, take it away.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Thank you to everyone attending today. Exciting to be here and to talk about technology, and the timing's right because we have, we're facing a pandemic and everybody has topics, subject matter built out on this, and it's important to highlight, but it's also important to think even beyond today and what you're doing, likely remotely with some of your workforce, but even tomorrow and how you start to build plans around that and a technology strategy around that. And so that's really what we're going to dive into. And if anybody has attended any presentations I've done in the past, I always try to make it educational and something that you can tangibly take away, instead of just telling you or preaching to you, you better have technology or you might be behind the curve. And so we're not going to do that. Our goal is to make sure that you have something that you can take away, work with your team in office to start building out that technology strategy for now moving forward. And everything that we're doing, we're interfacing right now through video. I'm sitting in my house. You may end up hearing my 1-year-old puppy barking at some point, which is a task. My children are working from home for school. My son was supposed to be on a zoo trip today with his elementary school. He's 7. And instead of doing that, his teacher actually pulled live feeds from around the country and world that are looking in on pandas and bald eagles and things like that in order to be able to still provide that education and to give them that experience, but it's virtual. And so we've got to dive into that conversation more and more, which is what this agenda is doing. How to be planful during a crisis, what we're dealing with right now, but also to make it a little bit more simple to have a discussion around that, then jumping into developing a technology strategy, planning for the long term, and then like Jeff mentioned, we'll go through the questions and answers, and looking forward to those more than anything because it brings insights, feedback, and usually teaches me a lot about what you as agencies are facing today, thinking about, and where you want to go moving forward. And thank you, Jeff, for providing the breakdown on the technology resources. Again, I'm Jason Walker. I started a consultancy almost a year ago now called Agency InsurTech, and I'm working and partnering with groups like the OIA to be able to bring anything that I've learned along the journey from a technology perspective. And I don't have all the answers, but what I love about this space is with a little bit of research, humility, and discussion with a lot of these groups that are out there, we can determine what's best for an agency in their maturation life cycle. And that's what we're here to do. So with that being said, let's jump into how to be planful during a crisis, this COVID-19 pandemic that we're facing today, and assessing the situation and conducting a technology audit. And there might be some surprises along the way, and I'd love to have your opinions again after we're done with this presentation. So the first thing I did was I wanted to pull a quote from someone that many, either respect or question or at least brings conversation to the table. That's Steve Jobs. And in this, he's basically saying, and I'll just give you the background to it. The way that I like to put it into terms is treat every situation as simple. And it actually is more challenging than we think to try to clear our minds of what we might hear and what we might be told to do versus what we as agencies are facing right now and how we're conducting business. And I would guess that by now, we've been in this about a month of working remotely, or at least trying to figure out how percentages of the staff are at home versus those that are in office, since this is an essential industry. But we're all facing this conversation, and you've actually already implemented plans, and you've provided specific software and hardware to your company and to your workforce. And so you've done some of the work already in saying, look, really we need a couple things from a hardware perspective, software perspective, and we need to do this, which is interface constantly with each other and do that with our employees internally and externally with our customers. And if we can cover those bases, you already have a semblance of a remote workforce. And you should take pride in that, celebrate that, pat yourself on the back, because it is a little bit simpler of a conversation versus sometimes what we hear from a PR perspective and in the media. And so approach everything simply. And when you're looking at things from a simple perspective, you've got to start debasing down. And the best way to do that is always kind of encapsulate yourself within 3 to 5 overarching goals, questions, strategies, activities, everything that you do, condense it down to roughly 3 to 5 activities that you are going to march forward with, or questions that you're going to pose to your team. And that keeps you in this finite discussion with your group, instead of thinking about all of the squirrels that are running around us where we might start to get distracted. Cut that out, and the challenge becomes more so around 3 to 5 questions, opportunities, goals. So if we're taking away a learning factor here from this conversation, the first piece is ask and answer 5 simple questions. And so we have a typical diagram of Q&A, and I'm providing a question and an answer. I'm making some assumptions, staying a bit broad, but what you should do is take this and then apply it to your agency, and you'll probably have the majority of these answers right now. And then you say, Jason, this seems a little bit like business 101. That's okay, because that's what helps us foundationally formulate a technology strategy. So what drives our business? We're asking our staff, we're asking our leadership, everybody in between. And usually you'll come back to, well, if I had to look at it from the topmost level and not drill into potentially the niche markets I play and all of that, I'd say sales and retention. Okay, great. So how do we achieve our drivers, those drivers being sales and retention? And you might come back with an answer like, through our people and process, because if you match those two together, that's ultimately what helps you start to work with your customer base and your employees internally. So now we know what drives our business. How do we achieve those drivers? So let's break this down. What do our people need? And our people need the tools to help them read, write, speak, communicate consistently, efficiently, and effectively. And that sounds so backwards as far as the answer. But if we're talking at those levels, we can start to say, all right, if I need my people to be able to do these 4 to 5 things very well, now I have to figure out what potential hardware and software to put in their hands in order to be able to achieve that. The fourth question and answer is, what do our processes support? And the answer there is marketing, prospecting, selling, servicing, and renewing our customers. Again, you will say, Jason, but there's like 25 other things in between that. True. But if we can keep ourselves right now at that high level, and we're asking ourselves and answering at that high level, again, it starts to help us categorize where we need to go and where many of you already are with the tools that you have in your office. And that's another key thing to keep in mind. You're doing a lot of this well today, and there isn't always a complete 100% change that you need to make. And we should embrace that and celebrate that. And finally, how do we protect our people and processes? The answer, and you already have these divisions within your company, through finance, HR, legal, and IT infrastructure. Meaning, if I've got the people and I have the processes, I better be able to back that up with all of the things that make sure I'm covered in case, God forbid, any kind of claim comes your way as a business. And so this is a very simple way to start to look at your company from a Q&A perspective, and keeping it within those 5 questions and providing 5 simple answers. That provides the foundation, especially right now where you are as a company that's working that kind of hybrid remote, plus some of you being in office. So then if we jump into, okay, so let's formulate our answers into more technology terms. And so we're going to do that by looking at the 2 things that we said are helping our drivers of sales and retention, and that's people and processes. So if we think about people in our organization, we're going to have to add the hardware piece. The reason why is because those are the tools that are helping our individuals be able to articulate, converse, and work with their customers. And then that equates usually to boosting employee morale, increasing productivity, and exuding empathy. And these are important. And I just had a conversation with an agency in a planning session where we kept talking about the people that you currently employ and that you're working with. And if you have the right tools, you're also able to use that as a recruiting mechanism later, especially as we build a long-term strategy. Because when you're telling people that you're able to weather the storms that we face that are sometimes unpredictable because you have specific tools that are top-notch, top of line, and allow your individuals to move virtually all over the world, then you've checked some boxes on the people that you're trying to recruit later in life, but you've made a better work environment for those that are working for you. And then if we look at processes, that more so equates to the software. And so if you think about people and hardware, you've got the tools in the hands that are tangible for the people. Now you have the processes where the software is implemented on the hardware that empowers the people. And that will equate to 3 simple factors: automating the mundane, which is always a conversation. And usually when I start having those 30-minute free discussions like Jeff mentioned, agencies ask me very quickly, I'm looking at Applied versus Vertafore. What should I do? The answer is not easy because we need to understand a bit more about your business, what you're trying to achieve in the next month, quarter, year, all the way up to 10 years. But once we start to nail that down, usually what's coming out of those discussions is I'm trying to automate the mundane. So again, my employees are happy and my customer base now becomes more efficient. Integrate with solutions. So we think about all of these software applications that we're called on a daily basis, being bothered by all of these technologists that have the next best thing. And something that's usually on your mind is, well, does it even integrate? Does it work with the platforms that I've put into place? And those are things we're going to need to answer moving forward. But once you do, you have an integration of solutions that start to help your business move along in the right trajectory. And then finally, software connects people. Case in point, what we're doing right now. A lot of us have opted for Zoom or some kind of technology. Zoom now has a better value than 3 large pillar industries combined as far as companies within them. I know Hilton was included in those 3 different company brands that we're used to. Zoom has a better valuation right now, all because of the technology that's helping us connect. And this will not change once we go back to work, because we will face these trials and tribulations through life. And we're figuring out what technology right now empowers our people and our customers to work together. So if we're thinking about the software and the hardware and people coming together, we can look at our technology and say, you know what, preparedness is actually kind of small. And a lot of you are already doing this, whether by default because you're providing your employees with a particular infrastructure, or your employees, when they go home, are streaming from their televisions. They're using a network that they already have in place that they've acquired through maybe a cable provider or whatever the case may be. So a lot of this, again, is already in place. It's about formulating how that works, and does it allow your employees to be able to work internally and externally with customers. So when we look at the big secret to preparedness and say it's kind of small, and a lot of people don't want to say that because they want to have the more complicated conversation and they're trying to throw 100 different tools and technology your way, let's actually bring it back a bit for our agencies. So the first piece is network, internet services provider, VPN access, and a managed services provider. Those individuals you're probably outsourcing to an IT infrastructure unless you have those employees in-house. From a hardware perspective, you need a modem, a router, a computer, usually a laptop these days, a mobile device in order to be able to connect if you're not doing it through your computer, or you can potentially wipe that off the board. And you need to have some kind of camera. And a lot of people still are a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm noticing more and more in these meetings, I'm seeing people's faces pop up. We're accepting that it's at least more tangible and human than seeing a black screen with your name written across. So I would urge you to have some kind of good camera in place that's allowing your hardware to connect through software. And then the software side, I'm blanketing this, an agency management system. And some of you will say, well, I actually don't have an agency management system. No, but you might have an accounting system, plus some kind of customer relationship management system, plus document imaging type system software, or you're doing it still by an older technology. The point is that whatever amalgamates up to allowing you to run your business so that you can manage your customer base, i.e. the agency management system, that's one component that you need to have in place, which most of you have something in place. Application software. So I just go along with the whole Microsoft Office, Excel, PowerPoint, the things that are allowing us to speak to you today and being able to demonstrate. It's as simple as having something like that. Others want to use more of the Google Office platform. Doesn't matter. You have to have one, and you probably did before any of this happened. And then finally, collaboration tools. I won't spend a ton of time because, again, we're doing it right now, but anything that allows e-signatures, allows the ability to be able to speak to each other, those types of software applications that take the place of the pencil, the paper, or the in-person visit. If you have this or some semblance of it, you're pretty set right now. And now it's more about formalizing and memorializing. So the last piece of this particular discussion, in these times where, again, we're facing a pandemic and we had to pivot pretty quickly, we need to start to think about memorializing work from home policy. And that's important because if this were to happen again, and when it does happen again, we will have something that we can hand out to our existing employees, as well as recruit using this particular section as a way to say, we've got it covered. You could come here and know that you're in a safe working environment, no matter where you are. We have a way to do that together. And so we can talk about this again, if we want to have that free consulting conversation. I've been doing a ton of research on this because it's popping up more and more. Everyone usually has an employee handbook. And I remember when working at Smart Harbor, we would just put an addendum in that handbook and have to have someone sign it again in order to say they accept the new version. I urge everyone to start thinking about a section that's around this work from home policy. And in that, the governance sections from a high level, and we can get into specifics later, is scope and define what work from home means for your agency. Establish some working hours, because now that puts people into a particular time frame that you can start to track with some kind of tracking software, because it depends. If you have people that are salaried versus people that are working hourly, you need to be able to cover those specific laws, and to be able to track hours of work is important depending on how you have designated them. Communication mediums and frequency, meaning I remember, running a technology firm. We were meeting, leadership met for 15 minutes every morning before we did anything else. We always had a monthly all hands. Every team was having a particular stand up in the morning. So start to codify that and just say, this is a part of normal business operation moving forward, and this is how we're going to do it, and put that into the manual. Tech requirements. So speed, equipment, access. And I've heard some interesting feedback in some of these tech council meetings that we run with OIA on a monthly basis, where some agents are saying, look, we do an audit of each of our employees and where they sit at home. And we want to make sure that not even on the technology side, that they have a particular space that almost mimics our office space. And if they need some help from the perspective of procuring maybe a chair or a desk, and then of course the hardware, software, what is it you're providing? And then what do you expect from that? If you're going to help subsidize a plan, you should have a say on what that plan is, so that you can make sure that your connection, your upload download speeds are good for your employees working from home, and that they're complying with that in order to be able to interface as if there is no piece missed within your business. Tech support hotline. So if you have a managed service provider, someone that's handling your IT infrastructure, it's important to make sure that each of your employees know how to get a hold of those individuals that can remote into their device if there's ever a problem. Most managed service providers do that. Office supply provisions, like the chairs, desks, down to what you want them to have, note-taking materials. Security requirements. So again, if you're helping subsidize, or you're saying if you work at this company, these are the types of measures that we're going to have to make sure are in place according to our handbook. This is where you want to make sure that you're providing the VPN so that your employees can come through, because they may sit down at a coffee shop or they're traveling. You just want to make sure that those security requirements are in place on your end. And if there's anything you need your employee to do from home, codify it here. And then productivity expectations and tracking. This is important, again, especially as you designate people that are hourly versus those that might be salary. But all of these pieces add up to a governance section that now is created in the handbook that you may or may not have updated around work from home, because it's real. So with that being said, let's move into the second portion of our discussion, which is developing a technology strategy. And this is something where screenshot everything that you see. I am going to use slides that build up because it's quite a bit of content, but it's something that, one, allows us to offer this as a CE credit-worthy presentation, but two, it's where you can literally, once we hang up today, you can sit down with your team and you can use this in meetings and some of those stand-ups that you have, or those monthly meetings, in order to start going through a natural progression of who you are as a business today and where you want to be with the help of technology coming into that strategy. So we're going to paint that picture and basically give you the playbook as a DIY model. So that's what this section is about. So the first thing is I wanted to say, you know, technology, sometimes the term, I think it's overused. Again, we need to get into specifics of what that means. Hardware, software, mixed with our people and our processes. But we're probably somewhat pulling our hair out right now. And I just wanted to provide a little bit of comic relief. I thought this was a perfect cartoon. I don't know that I can guarantee that we're going to reduce the hours of frustration that you'll have after coming out of a strategy building session that you're going to do with your team or not. But this is a nice one. He had reduced his business strategy panic attacks to under 3 hours. I think even if it's not around technology or business strategy, we're probably pulling our hair out in some way, shape, and form under the new conditions we're currently living, which hopefully are temporary. So the exercise, DIY strategy. And again, I want to be as upfront and cut a lot of the terms that seem to make this entire area gray. So the first thing is, the following is a fictional agency that is building a technology strategy following a macro, high level, to micro, getting into the weeds path, which we can use for ourselves to build a similar personalized plan for identifying and selecting solutions. Again, very important because we're going to go through very similar to what we did on saying, what are you doing now in the light of the pandemic? And now, what are we going to do moving forward once we come out of it, and strategy around bringing some technology into the business or enhancing what you already have comes into play. So the first thing is know ourselves in the age of technology. And underneath each one of these sections, you'll see kind of the clarification or definition for the section. So what are the top 5 and first of 5 most promising and potentially profitable automation opportunities available for our agency to actively and aggressively pursue? What are the top 5 and most 5 most dangerous and potentially devastating technology threats or brutal facts facing our agency? And so I've made all of this up on a particular agency, but trying to take certain feedback and things that I've heard throughout my career on the side of being a technology vendor and framing it up. So you could also think about this as Business 101 SWOT analysis, but it has a technology influence. So our agency is great because we're family owned, 50 years in business, 15 carrier appointments, 50-50 book split between commercial and personal lines, 95% customer retention rate. Some of these things might be farcical or fantastical, but it's okay. We're framing this up so that you can do a replace all and pop in your answers. Our agency is challenged by an inability to recruit new talent, reliance on paper processes, finances reflect a lifestyle business, lack technology solutions that provide efficiency through automation, and an inability to compete with direct-to-consumer models that we know are out there, and they're usually dubbed insurtechs. Our agency can take advantage of influx of small businesses in the community and surrounding areas. So maybe you're noticing in your particular location a population of businesses popping up all over the place, and you want to be able to take advantage as that jumping in, jumping off point, even if you're not right now the expert in any one industry in those businesses that are popping up, but there are tools to help you get there. Expanding locations to 2 in the next 18 months, so you're growing. Daughters in perpetuation training right now to run the agency in the next 24 months. So again, something you can take advantage of in a 2-year life cycle. Completing migration to cloud-based agency management system in 2 months. I've heard that. Obviously, if you think about Applied as an example, moving from more of what's based in the office to putting everything on the cloud and what that means from moving from one to the other. And then identifying niche program offerings outside of typical business lines. And a lot of you are already facing this, you know what that means, but we're going into specific sectors where you can start to automate portions of your business around niche lines of business. And I'm focusing on commercial because personal lines has been there for a while. Our agency is up against competitive insurance technologies, or insurtechs, with internal agencies have entered our markets. So they're competing with you in essence, anywhere and everywhere. Online direct-to-consumer models from carriers, including those which we are appointed. So almost having that dual where you're partnered and friendly with them, but you're also competing on certain lines of business. And how do you start to, make a separation of the two so that you're working with them in a way that's advantageous for both. Talent pool migration away from traditional business models to tech-enabled models. Volatility of commission structures, which has been since the beginning of time. And high growth markets include many in which are not experts or prepared to manage. So again, something where you're seeing a lot of opportunity pop up, but you haven't actually dealt with it from a policy perspective and coverage perspective. How do you take advantage of that? Or how are you going to flip what you're up against now into a positive? And so if we can sit here and look at our agency and ask those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, but putting it in a way that you get good response and you can make it a little bit more fun than looking at it from a SWOT perspective, that gives you a core foundation of now who we are today and where we have opportunity, where we see threat, and where are we going to take advantage by introducing technology. Again, why I can't just answer, should I do vertical or applied? Because we need to get to these answers first. So the next piece would be, great, we've stated who we are. Now we've got to look at our business and coming down a funnel. So we're going to start at roughly that now to 10 years from now. So state our tech aspirations. What specific actions do we need to take in the months and years ahead to best allow us to fulfill and achieve our purpose and our core values and beliefs? And so first, provide as many communication touch points to our customers to become their trusted advisor. Second, be accessible as an always-on agency, providing around-the-clock support. Third, partner with education consultants that provide ongoing training for our employees, which you do now. Make our operations and processes efficient to enhance customer and employee satisfaction. And then finally, incorporate automation to elevate human interaction. And so this is as if I am an agency, and I'm saying in the next 10 years, these are the things that we need to be able to achieve so that we can plan around it. And then every activity that we drive from here on out has got to revisit these tech aspirations so that you don't fall off course. And obviously you're going to pivot as a business here and there, and things like the pandemic end up and throw a wrench into an entire planning session. But you have this now as an example to be able to build into your tech aspirations, and it probably drives a lot of your thoughts and where you are. So then we go into stating our key thrust, and this is now plus 3 years out. So again, we just looked at 10 years. We're trying to pull ourselves back to say, what can we manageably do and tangibly do in the next 3 years for our business? So what 5 specific moves or actions must our agency take, or what talents must we apply in measurable terms, prioritize and state it as the top 5 and first 5. Again, keeping yourself to that 3 to 5 so that we meet or exceed our 3 to 5 year targets with new technology in place. So automate non-value tasks. So we've talked about automation from a cloud perspective, meaning the 30,000 foot view, but if we start coming down, what type of tasks do we really want to automate? Those that are not value. Why? Because it makes your existing employees happier and your customers are able to do things in a quicker perspective because there's a quick throughput driven by that technology. We're getting deeper now. Connect prospecting, communication, rate quote, and policy admin together. This is a holy grail within the tech space. We continue to watch those that are putting these technologies together and how do they integrate and function. And this is going to become more key over time. Increased number of at-bats through digital lead generation. So we are still a sales organization, even though more and more the conversation is centering around, especially right now, people are saying, I'm not really even trying to sell or prospect. People don't want to hear that message. So I'm diving more into my existing customer base, and I'm trying to figure out ways that I can start to automate to those masses saying, everything's going to be okay. And then the next message would be, did you realize that you have this particular policy for your business, and appending this one with it makes you much more sound in the future or years to come. Reduce operating expenses. That's always something that we're trying to achieve. And again, there are some outside forces that end up and force us to have to think about that sometimes when we're not ready, like what's taking place today, or even when commission rates drop on a particular product line. You have to figure out, what do you do in order to combat that within your agency? Technology is a way to be able to do that while maintaining that staff, but moving them towards something that's a little bit more advisory. And then finally, recruiting digital natives. This is coming up in conversations as well. And this is less about technology, but technology has the halo effect because our population change is taking place from an age perspective, as we all know, and we've heard about the movement from the boomers, et cetera, and the generations behind coming up. And what's interesting, and like I just mentioned, my daughter and my son, they're leveraging tablets and computers and jumping on Zoom meetings. I never did that as a child. So digital native is just going to be another thing for saying business as usual or normal life. And if you can articulate that, because now in your 3 year plan, from now to 3 years, you're popping that in, you're going to be able to recreate a good recruiting mechanism because you'll have those answers at the ready. So we've gone from 10 years to 3 years. Now, with those answers, we're going to keep whittling down. So you're looking from now to 1 year from now. So what 5 specific moves or actions, and this is very similar to what we just did, but we need to narrow it, must our agency take, or what talents must we apply in measurable terms to meet or exceed our 1-year technology goals? These are our annual priorities, stated again as that top 5, first 5. So let's see what this agency has said. All right, we're going to need to procure tech that eliminates manual entry. Again, because in the past we kind of labeled it as we need to automate, and as we're trickling down, well, what do we need to automate? Well, some of those mundane tasks. What are mundane tasks? Some of those that require manual entry. So now here we are, within the next year, we need to get some technology in place that eliminates that manual entry. Second, obtain an integration partner or something that's in the middle, called middleware, that connects disparate technologies. And so thinking about if we were talking about the agency management system, like I had mentioned, and the connection point of maybe a rating tool or something that has marketing automation at play, you could start to tie those together. And if you have a couple of integrations, because not one of those solutions provides the end all be all, but you can find 2 to 3 players usually that can give you an A to Z movement of that customer journey, now you're onto something. And if you can sit here and vet over the next 2 to 3 months, or maybe less, because you've already got some people in mind, you can move forward with that. Going into number 3, identify quality lead channels. This, if anybody has the answer, please, in the feedback, provide it. In my lifetime and working on the technology side at Smart Harbor and trying to find partners that provide best leads or prospects, whatever they want to call it, because leads is unsexy, so people move to the term prospecting. It's all the same. Identifying quality lead channels. And if you start to think about yourself as going after a niche audience, it makes it more consumable. And that means you're not just running out and buying every BOP lead that's available. That means that you're not running out and buying every auto lead that's available. You're trying to find something that supports a specific industry, like agriculture, for instance. There's a lot of public data out there where you can take that information and turn it into leads yourselves and start telling, in the agricultural space, farmers doing it as a business, I know you're out there and I provide solutions that I can help you with. And that's a totally different slant on finding a quality lead than just going to a provider that's going to sell it to you. Implement operational infrastructure tools that make our team members efficient. And if I could do it over, I would rewrite that sentence because that sounds too wordy and too technical. Basically what we're saying is find things that help your team members, and it goes back to the hardware plus software conversation, that just help them move from step A, B, and C, those handoffs. Operationally, you have different groups within your organization. We talked about it at the beginning of this presentation. How do you make those handoffs easier? Because you have some technology that just takes that so you can remain at your desk or at your computer no matter where you are and continue to process more customers and prospects depending on where you're at as you're passing specific product within your agency. So becoming more operationally efficient is just key. And then building an HR recruitment strategy that is similar to an InsurTech's enthusiasm and allure. And I totally believe in this, and this is somewhat this is somewhat tested, because I've gone to specific insurance agencies. When I walked in the door, I had no idea that that's what they do as a business, and it threw me off guard. And what I'm saying is I'm noticing agencies are starting to change even the way they look from an interior perspective and taking down some of those walls, creating those open environments. And again, the cliche InsurTech having some kind of gaming system that's sitting in your agency, you're creating the allure that this is a cool, sexy place to be. You're not changing what you're doing on behalf of your customers, but what you are doing is making it more inviting for those digital natives that are going to come through. You can take the business and the foundation that you've created for years, and if you're new into the insurance channel, then you can immediately say, we're approaching it from a technology perspective. We're different. However your slant is, if you start to offer the right software, hardware, and even the aesthetics in your office space, you can create a recruitment strategy that's bringing in a technology-focused person, and they're going to believe in your agency, and the industry continues to become much more intriguing. So we've gone from 10 to 3 to 1, and now we're going to go by quarter. So we're trying to continue to nail this down. And this is what Steve Jobs meant from the perspective that sometimes simple becomes a little bit more challenging. And the reason why is you've got to cut the noise, and you can't entertain the sixth thought right now. It's why prioritization is so important, because now we're going to go into stating those rocks or hurdles and the accountabilities that we must have quarter by quarter as a team and in our individual groups in order to achieve the embrace and adoption of technology. It requires everyone. Otherwise, the tool's as good as sitting on the shelf. No reason to buy it, even though you see a great demo. So our rocks are our company's quarterly action items that are of the highest priority to achieve our tech roadmap. There should be no more than 5 for the company and no more than 3 if you're parsing out to individuals. Rocks are the action items that will be most responsible for achieving our quarterly and annual goals. For each rock, an individual or team is designated to drive it home. So let's look at that for this pretend agency. 1, now you're getting really specific. Okay, if I want to automate, if I want to take out mundane tasks, where do we spend a lot of our time? On eForms. Great. Go vet and select the proper eForms supplier. Now you're starting to think in terms of what are the benefits, what benefits do I need as an agency? And then if you're able to articulate the benefits, now you've got a good roadmap for who are the 2 to 3 eForms providers that I'm going to go ask to participate in my discussion with them. And they're going to have to fulfill everything that I already mapped out, which makes your job as an agency easier because now you're putting them on the seat to answer it properly or move on. So vet and select an eForm supplier is 1. Vet and select a middleware partner, someone that can bring some of these technologies together so they're not disparate. And sometimes when you're lucky, you will find specific technologies that already connect, so you don't need to go down that middleware process or point. But a good way to think about this is if we know Salesforce is a CRM, then they have a bunch of plug and play modules. If you put all those together, you basically, the CRM sits in the middle and brings all of these disparate technologies together to be able to perform specific actions across the board. Vet and select a lead distribution supplier. So we talked about, hey, we need to still have a funnel of people coming through, but we know that we want to be able to look for those that are providing quality. Quality to us means we're going after the restaurant industry or agribusiness, as I mentioned. So I can weed out all of the people that are more generic with leads and care about selling you quantity and not quality. So we're going to go vet and select based on the rules we created about our business and what we know. Vet and select a phone, CRM, email marketing solutions provider, those that can start to automate those conversations, especially when we're home during a pandemic and we want to dive deeper into our existing customer base. Well, I need a system that captures all of them. I need a system that communicates to them. And I need something that continues to follow up and be able to push out. Would you like to have a quote at the end of that conversation, not being forceful at the beginning? And then finally, sponsor a community open house and invite university students. And this is very specific to this agency. But again, if they're trying to recruit talent, the digital natives, you're bringing in people into your physical location, whether or not you choose for them to work at that office or from home, but you're demonstrating to them why you matter from a face-to-face value, and then you can sell them on everything that you have from an infrastructure perspective. I point this out because we did this back in my previous life, and it usually had a great turnout. If nothing else, you meet a lot of great people, and you're able to help the community, and people begin to see you as a pillar for job creation, as well as building a network that ultimately comes back to pay you back some way, shape, and form. So at the end of all of that, there is a format that all of the information that we just wrote, including some financials that I made up for this agency, can be put entirely into what I'm dubbing a placemat for your business. And I've done this before. I've conducted these processes, these strategy finding in order to understand how to drive our business toward technology. I've done it for the businesses that I've run in the past, and it's not something that's completely novel or new to me and to the industry. It's called the Rockefeller Habits, and it's following a process. And there's even a sourcing down here if you want to go to it. It's GAZELLES.com, gazelles.com. Gazelles are those animals that have long legs that can leap and go fast, those that propel forward. If you can take your business and simplify it and put it into the placemat, then you have a marching order that you can always revisit. And everything that you said, no matter who comes in that's new versus those that have been around in your business, we're now all using it together. And so that's developing that strategy. And again, take this stuff, take it back into your agency and start performing the DIY. And then finally, we will wrap with the planning for an optimal long-term tech setup. So this is identifying essential technology tools post-coronavirus crisis. And so what's a great quote that I love from Jason Fried, who is the CEO, founder of Basecamp, which is a virtual collaboration tool. So they did this a long time ago, and now their tool is extremely applicable. But unless you are a fortune teller, long-term business planning is a fantasy. So you know what? That should give you some thought that everything that I say from here to now is probably going to pivot and change. But if I can start to think fantastically, then I'm able to start to drive my business in a direction that's aspirational and gets me places faster than if I were to sit back and just say that I've got to perform on the daily basis, daily tasks. So which technology themes rise post-COVID-19? And these are three that, not just from a gut feeling, but from research and watching how the market is talking in the tech space: communication, cybersecurity. So making sure that if you're buying all of these technologies and tools and the software and the hardware, you have to make sure that you have the infrastructure, which is not sexy, but it's what your managed service provider may or may not be providing today. You've got to have it covered, locked down, and secure, because you are opening your business up every time you buy a new tool or a new software. And then also automation. That will continue to play out. I'm pulling back off of an artificial intelligence discussion, leave that to big enterprises that'll figure it out in 10 years. I'm saying if you can just take some steps and handoffs and move them forward, you can start to make sense of all of these insurance technology companies for agents that are continuing to multiply. And these are specific brands, and I am not advocating for one. I'm missing 1,000, but the point is that what we're doing at OIA is starting to figure out and codify where each of these plays an integral role or could play an integral role for your agency. And because we now know a lot about our business strategy, we can take these and start to implement them and start to ask the critical questions and say, yeah, don't want to see your presentation in PowerPoint. I actually want to see that live demo, which is what OIA is forcing every technology provider to do if they want to present to agents. And you're going to take that demo and demonstrate what's real today and what's still to come that maybe you as the agent can provide feedback and be involved in their process. Because I'll tell you, most of them aren't done building. And so you have to keep that in mind and be realistic. Agency BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, if we're allowed, according to Jason Fried and others, and think fantastically, because again, it could be 10 years from now, then let's just become the insurance agency that has mastered a human plus artificial intelligence model so our employees and customers benefit from efficiency and turn disaster into delight. A bit markety, salesy language, but the point is, think about yourself and bringing together the best in technology and the best in human, and that's who you're going to be. And so from there, you've set this hairy, audacious goal. Probably 20% of it will become reality, but you have your marching orders that allow you to work backwards down to what you have to do quarterly. And if you do that right, you can start to look at the world in a different way. Right now, you're clogged and jammed with calls that are coming from technology providers every day. Some of what they say, some of what they present will do everything 100% the way they say and present. Some of it is because they have it on their product technology roadmap, and it will happen a little bit later. We need to make sense of it. And we also need to say, technology provider, you're not the silver bullet. You're pretty cool in your category. So let's start to categorize and codify InsurTech for agents. And if we know a lot about our business, we can take that and almost regurgitate it as a request for proposal to any one of these players and say, this is what we're trying to achieve. And even though one InsurTech might have 2,300 insurance agencies as customer, that might not be the perfect fit for you. And that's what we need to start sifting through with the strategy. But if we look at our world from starting with managed services, your IT infrastructure, because if you don't have that right, you're opening yourself up to exposure from a cybersecurity and E&O perspective. And a lot of managed service providers right now are very local to you, but they're also working with dentists and florists and other businesses. So they look at you as one of those other industries and they become agnostic. You need someone to really pay attention to all those boxes you check as yes, 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 I'm covered. Yeah, I have a particular firewall, blah, 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 I'm secure. You really need to put them to the fire as well, because if you buy any of the technologies off of this string before having the proper infrastructure, you open yourself up to exposure, and we want to avoid that. But then you can look at websites and marketing, prospecting, quoting, binding, policy management, policy review, policy renew. And I tell you, there are many steps in between here. But if we start to simplify it a bit and start to codify these technologies and who plays, and I will tell you that technologists have told me, Jason, build a line, because I'm not just website, I'm also marketing automation, and I get it, and so do the agents, but we're trying to start to categorize in some way because it's not really being done right now. You're being told as agents, go buy it, go do it. but we need to start to make it real and tangible for you so you can complete this journey. And a lot of you are probably 80% there, maybe 30%, 50%, wherever you are. It's just where can we fill in those gaps and those pieces. So what have we learned very quickly before we open up to Q&A? How to be planful during a crisis, approach technology simply by creating a concise employee policy and ensuring the procurement of hardware and software solutions is portable and accessible remotely. Develop that tech strategy so that we can narrow from macro to micro and really make it real and actionable right now that you're going to complete within the next quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and moving forward. And then planning for the long term, because we have all of that knowledge about our business and we took the slant of technology and propped it into that strategy. Now we can start to embrace the fantasy and make some of it a reality. But think big, talk big, say you're going to be something that sounds fantastical, because then we can build back from there and get you to the process of where you truly need to be, which in the end, drive sales, retention, retain your employees, your customers, and build the type of insurance that you want in a technology space where we have all of these players and all of these influences that sometimes we can't control. But if we have this right, it won't matter. We can look at it as a variable we can set aside. So thank you so much. And I'm gonna stop talking for a minute and take a drink of water, and we'll open it up for a Q&A here.
Well, thanks, Jason. I knew you were going to cover a ton of ground in a short period of time, and it's so appropriate given that agents have been thrust into this experience like all businesses have, but ours in a situation where predominantly our agencies were set up to work from their brick and mortar locations and moved very quickly to get into a remote workspace. And we're fortunate that insurance agencies were considered essential. So we were permitted to continue to operate and be in our office, but it's still, it's under different circumstances. So it's forced us, we know, to make some changes. So before we move forward with Q&A, I want to jump in and do the polling. So all of you can weigh in on a few of the questions that we've put together to better understand and get some insights on your agency operation, what the experience has been like through COVID-19 and your planning and your agency's engagement through technology. So we're opening this up. So if you can take a moment to vote on it, we need you to, if you want the CE credit, because we have to show that you were here and participated in the program. So it should be available to you now. I see that we've posted it, and if you take a moment to answer a couple of the questions, yep, it's working, because I'm seeing we got 2 already in and voting. This will, again, allow us to verify for CE purposes that you were here, and also, again, to learn a little bit about what the frustrations and struggles are. So Jason, as our participants are doing the poll, let's continue down the road of a little bit of conversation. In this hasty effort to move from more traditional brick and mortar to some blend or fully remote work, agencies have made a lot of decisions. What would you say is probably 1 or 2 of the biggest things that agents really need to, in any business for that matter, but agents in particular here, need to stop, pause, take a deep breath and reflect on, because these small decisions will compound and add up to big decisions that will affect the strategy, the spend, the agency outlook in the future. So what are 1 or 2 of those that are really red flags and are things that you just gotta take a deep breath and think about before you jump in and move forward?
Jeff, agencies should start by auditing the technology and software they already have. And that's become more resonant as I've built discussions with agencies, is that we already have a technology stack, or whatever we want to call it, that I believe we're not utilizing to its fullest extent. And if we were able to reflect on what currently exists in our office, and then have an understanding with working with those particular technology providers that we still believe in, and we use those tools daily, but we're probably just scratching the tip of that iceberg as far as how we're utilizing it. And I say that because we talk about trends of automation and doing things with communication and working on specific customer portfolios. A lot of that is being done right now through tools and technology that might have a couple other portions that you may not have to pay more in order to be able to leverage, but to know that then foundationally says, oh, I thought coming into this that I was going to have to just rewrite my entire business so I'd have the equivalent that's technology enabled with what I have right now at the brick and mortar. But after going through that process and taking a step back, breathing, and assessing what I currently have and asking the right questions, I'm able to figure out I'm 50% of the way there. And I think that's important because we only have finite budgets to be able to spend on that infrastructure. So let's figure out everything the infrastructure can do. And if you like what it can do, even if it feels like it does what it should, and then from there, you can say, wow, now I know I only need these couple other pieces. And that's where, when we look at that spectrum, you might already have, a lot of you do, some kind of agency management system or customer relationship management tool, but you're trying to figure out, how do I then pass the baton when I have a particular customer that might need quoted on something? That then narrows you down to say, I probably need an e-forms company of some sort and a quoting tool. And so those are the ways that you should stop, take a breath, and then say, it's probably just a couple pieces I need to fill in a hole.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple questions. We'll leave the polling open for just another minute because we're still getting a few more that are coming in. We got 107 that have voted at this point, but let's go through these questions. So we got 3 questions that have come in. Only got 5 minutes, so you're going to have to be quick on the draw here, Jason.
Okay.
All right. Our biggest, wait, hold on. It popped down.
Jeff, come on.
I know. Sorry, man. All right. Once we've outlined our goals and have narrowed our needs or focus, each technology selection may limit the choices for the next tool due to integration. Integration's key. Is there a recommended prioritization strategy for technology decisions?
Yes. So if you are trying to make a decision around a technology and they might today lack integration, or you will be limited tomorrow because they don't have it, I would say, what are you basing that opinion off of? And that's in a particular case, some will say my agency management system, and I truly need tools that integrate. Otherwise, I've got a problem. So I hear some really cool things, but they don't integrate. Part of it is you have the strongest voice as an agent, and I know that because every time an agent speaks to a particular provider or partner, immediately that technology tool is taken into consideration. So they help your vetting process without paying for it. And then ultimately, if it's a day one activity that you need to take advantage of with integration, you will be confined and limited to those that currently have it with the tools that you already have. And that is a kind of in your face answer, but it's the truth, because you are only as good as the integrations that you have. And if you have a specific need, then figure out who plays well today. And if you really like somebody that doesn't, then you need to have them in front of your technology provider that you're already partnered with, and they'll help you figure that out, or they'll tell you the direction to go.
Okay, good stuff. All right, so our biggest challenge has been getting everyone on board with new technology and use the great resources we have. Any advice on how to help them be easily adaptable? So how do you get them adopted? That was one of our polling questions, and we'll shut it down here in a minute and read back to you, but we know it's a big struggle. So go ahead, Jason.
I would say from a leadership position, approach everything with humility. And you may believe that you do, but also listen to those around you. If you feel like there's some combative piece coming from workforce and getting people to adopt, it's sometimes something that you have to overcome personally first. And a way to do that is to start to demonstrate the same tools that you want everybody to adopt. You show everybody, and whether it's a live demonstration of how you're using it, you're flubbing through it, not everything's perfect. You say, damn, that didn't work the way that I wanted it to. Get people to say, okay, see man or see woman, that wasn't easy. You need to help us get through that too. To become part of the adoption process usually drives everyone around you, because they see that you're not just telling them what to do, you're actually using it yourself, or at least being that first person who's testing it. And a lot of the time, it's all it takes to break down the walls. But to have a humble conversation and to be able to demonstrate through data, which is hard to argue, if you can say, hey, do you want to get 30 minutes back in your day, every day? And I don't care what you do with it. Maybe that's your first marching order. Yeah, tell me about it. Great, I did this today, and watch, when I do it with paper, pencil, whatever, versus when I did it with my technology, I'm able to save 8 minutes. Now compound that 4 times, it's actually 32 minutes. So lead by example and use data to back up what you're doing.
Okay. So Shauna, we can end the polling, and while you do that, we can show everyone the results. Let's go to this question real quick, Jason. In your opinion, if a staff person uses her iPhone and connecting to a carrier, does Norton VPN provide enough protection?
No, especially, I will caveat that if you're doing, and I hate to use the terms, but like non-essential tasks, it's less of a problem. When we led with this presentation talking about a VPN, there's a reason for that. And that's because you have to have a secure environment that's protecting all of the processes and software that you have on the back end, where you're ultimately passing information and data around specific to customers and or employees. And your particular Norton antivirus is good for a device, but it's not good for your business network per se. So if you're doing something that's more so just having a text chat with someone and you've got it installed on your phone or whatever, that's okay, as long as you're not talking about things that could expose your customer base or your employees. But once you start talking about customer information or employee information, you've got to go steps beyond. And so the virtual private network has the fail-safes in place that take over for something that's just specific to us as a consumer sitting in our house hanging out.
So it's 1 o'clock. I know we said we'd be done at 1, so all of you who need to go can jump off. We got a couple more questions we wanted to get through. Also wanted to just show you the poll results. This is going to be recorded. We'll share it with you. We're going to share the presentation, everything with you. You'll get a link in, I don't know, 3 days after this. So I just want to tell you all, thank you for joining us. If you have to jump off, go ahead. We are going to plow through a couple more of these questions. And then the polling results, you can see 56% spent somewhere between $500 and over $10,000 to upgrade their technology to move to a more remote work environment as a result of COVID-19. So there was a spend pretty quickly. 44% though didn't spend anything according to the poll. It looks like, you know, getting staff to utilize current technology solutions is the biggest struggle that agencies have. Not shocking. I think we hear that pretty consistently in anecdotal conversations, and it's already been a question in this conversation. The one that kind of surprises me is the number of technology solution vendors you work with, and 74% said less than 5. I think going back to your previous point, Jason, about a technology audit, I would love to see agents do a technology audit, because we're finding it's higher than 5, but it might not be in most of these agencies. I just think most of the conversations that we're having and the engagement we're experiencing, it's closer to the 6 to 15 range is what we would see. And then the last is, does your agency have a technology strategy? And it's about 50-50 split, 53-47, 53% saying yes, we do. So Jason, a couple more questions, and then we'll call this over. Staying on top of all the automation choices is a big challenge with which products are good before you invest. Always help stay on that with different automation choices and vendor setup at the annual meeting. So I think it's more of a comment than a question. So thank you for that feedback. And then kudos to you, Jason. It says, this is one of the most informative 1-hour webinars I've attended in a while. Free no less, nonetheless. Thank you, OIA, for sharing Jason's expertise with us. So
thank you.
I guess a nice little compliment. And then question 4 needs a third option, but we didn't, but we need to do now. So fair point. We'll make sure that we take that into consideration when trying to craft these in the future. Those were actually all the questions. More of them were just more comments at the end. So I guess I'll wrap it by saying thank you, Jason, for spending time with us today and sharing your insight and knowledge. Thanks for being on the team and helping our members as they plan through the technology needs that they need in their agencies and to move forward. Thank you to all of you for your membership, for your loyalty, for your support of the OIA, for programs like this and others. And so everyone have a great day, be well, be safe, and we will talk to you on Monday at the Public Policy Town Hall Forum. Any parting shots, Jason?
I just want to echo everything as far as thanking everyone. I appreciate the good feedback, and I'm learning a lot too just by working with agencies. So whatever your technology needs are, you just have specific questions, reach out. I would love to just have a conversation, especially in these times. It's good to talk to people.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Well, thanks all for participating, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Bye.